When I arrived in '78, we are talking about the beginning of the end for the dance boom nationwide. So I found a fairly healthy dance scene in Chicago in some ways because of that. And, you know, on the national level, you'd had growing recognition of such major figures as George Balanchine in the New York City Ballet, Martha Graham, and Merce Cunningham. You had this wonderful series on public television, Dance in America, which brought a lot of these folks' work, you know, into living rooms everywhere. And so a city like Chicago, with its size, you know, was a part of all of that. At the same time, for years, we talked about dance as the stepchild of the Chicago art scene. The visual art scene and the theater had developed and exploded more quickly. And to some extent, dance wasn't holding its own in Chicago in the same way that it was maybe in some other places like San Francisco, Boston. There was that. Now, on the contemporary level, you had the kind of grassroots activity going on a lot of places. You had the Moming Dance and Art Center over on Berry, which had a regular program annually of visiting experimental, avant-garde, or just contemporary modern work, as well as a place to show off local choreographers. And you had the Dance Center of Columbia College, which at that time was up on Sheridan Road and had a really impressive series every year, funded by an educational institution that brought a lot of the smaller experimental companies of the time. You know, so I saw Bill T. Jones and Arnie Zane, who was still living then, over at Moming. I saw the work of David Gordon, David Gordon's company, who was eventually plucked from obscurity, I might as well say it, by Mikhail Baryshnikov, and I saw him at Moming. Meanwhile, there were a number of small companies that had formed, you know, in and around that whole movement, like Shirley Mordine's troupe, which was based in the Dance Center. Joseph Holmes had a company named after himself. Joel Hall had a company and in fact is still going. Nana Scheinflug and the Chicago Moving Company was going then. So you had this small grassroots dance scene that it's hard for me really to compare it to any other cities because I didn't live in any other cities. But it was there and it formed the crux of what later would become a real dance explosion.